All right, welcome everyone to the January, or actually, I guess our second meeting of January, the January Athens in Motion Commission meeting. I am Lauren, I am the chair. Good to see everyone. Glad to have Stephen here and Ronnie, and Commissioner Myers is listening in. Welcome. So I'm going to share my screen and pull up agenda. I won't have it sharing the whole time, but can y'all see my screen? Can I get a verbal yes?
No.
No.
Okay.
Now we can.
Okay. Great. Try to expand this. So we have the standard stuff at the beginning. And we won't have guests from UGA here, so that section will be shorter. Staff updates, like Athens letter of support. I have a bunch of things to talk about. This is mainly a list. We'll check in with committees and have some other reminders. Any other additions or changes? If there aren't, to approve the agenda.
Hold on one second. I think where you have the agenda approval down number 4, I think that should be minutes approval, right?
Oh, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yes, and they are linked here. We'll talk about those in a second. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda with this correction?
So moved.
Teresa.
Mark seconds it.
Okay, Mark seconds. All right. All those in favor, aye. All right.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. All right. Moving on. I think this is the normal order we do things. Stephen, do you know if there were any public comments about our meeting?
None to the department.
Gotcha. And now we have our minutes. For Jake, pretty quickly, pretty rapidly put this together. So we really appreciate you, Teresa. Besides the names at the end, were there any other questions or clarifications that you needed, Teresa?
Not really. I mean, I basically just rewatched the meeting and, kind of wrote it up from there, tried to channel my inner Jake. And I guess I did okay on that. But anyway, I think I captured all the important points. There's a lot of discussion that we have that, I didn't feel like we needed to go, into a real transcript with, but there we are.
Yeah. And the screenshot of the area we were talking about.
Yeah, that thing is such a mess.
Yeah. You super detailed meeting minutes, and they're really helpful. If you guys are ever tired, I mean, you can, I think it's sufficient to record the things at the minimum, the things that we vote on and just the topics we discuss. I believe that's correct.
That's Jake. He set the standard. So, I didn't want to be accused of doing, sketchy minutes.
Gotcha. All right. I get from our December meeting.
One thing, I think at the very bottom, I think I forgot to cut out a couple of things from the old minutes. Because I just took the old minutes and the heat map stuff. Yeah, everything from the meeting adjourned at 5:32 p.m. down. Yeah, good. That's it.
All right. Now can I get a motion?
I'll move to approve.
All right, there's one. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Roswell. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same. All right. Thank you again, Teresa. Next item is the next item on our agenda is a UGA update. We don't have guests, but I'm going to turn it over to Lawrence, who's going to give you guys the down low on where we are with our conversation, our ongoing conversation with the University of Georgia. So,
yeah, so I spoke with several people here at UGA, from Jimmy Williamson to Laura Mathis, Allison McCullum, and a few other people, just because they are probably names you all are familiar with. They're also in the process as it relates to sidewalks and roadways here on campus, right? And so I know some of you may get a little frustrated with me because I'm not in that particular process on campus. And so, as I mentioned before, pull a little group together so that they can, we have meetings that happen a week prior to this meeting. So when I get the agenda early, like I did this time, which was great, I'm able to see if that team needs to weigh in at all. But spoke with them, spoke with our chair, spoke with Lauren, just to get a better understanding of what our group wanted to hear from UGA and someone a little closer in that process, and just trying to figure out exactly the right person to be here. And in doing so, Allison and Lauren were able to connect, and they're actually going to have a call tomorrow. And so that's on the books. I've confirmed with Allison before the meeting, and I actually also double checked with Lauren just to make sure that everyone's on the same page. And so the two of them will speak, and then after that, I'll jump back in the loop and see what the next process is, and what they've discussed, if we need to move forward or who we need to move forward with, if there are particular questions, and just, from my employment here, if there are particular questions, that'll go a lot better, than if it's a lot of hypotheticals and vague, because those things are subject to change based on timing, and environment and resources and things like that. So I talked to Lauren about that as well. So I just, look forward to UGA being as transparent as possible and providing as much information as possible on the projects that they weigh in on. So, yeah, guys, ever have any questions for me, email or call, or just, you can ask me now.
thank you, Roswell. And to confirm what Roswell said, I do have a call with Allison tomorrow at 2 p.m. And so, Roswell, what you're trying to do is you're trying to pull together a group of folks at UGA and ideally meet before our meeting. So that way you can report back to us. Is that right?
Yes, and so by providing them the agenda that we have, so if there's anything they're meeting on, because they're in some of the ACC meetings and other meetings that I'm not in, that's not necessarily in my job description. So pulling them together so we all can hear the same thing as a small group at UGA, and then if there's excuse me, anything I need to bring back to this group, then I have that information too. So I just think that was the only way for me to make sure that we start to get on the same page consistently, not just a one-off, just when something happens. So yes, raise hand.
Teresa.
Roswell, thank you so much for working on this. This is really what we've been needing for a while. So will the people that you're meeting with have access to what Ronnie and Stephen have put together, so that they'll know exactly what the options are and, what decisions we've made based on the assumptions that we had going forward?
Teresa, I sent them information that I have, so I have that, so they have that. Okay. And so when we had our first meeting before, maybe prior to last month's meeting, they had those documents and the write-ups that Ronnie did. So I may need to send that to them again, or whatever we need to do. But I just want to make sure the right people are in the room for the questions that you have. If that makes sense.
Right.
I just don't want the group getting a lot of general answers and then being frustrated. So if there's something we want to know, just let's get to the point so that I can make sure that the right person, if it's not me, is in the room with me or directly talking to our chair or whomever. Mark.
Yeah, I'm curious, is there a 5-year plan or some sort of a plan in terms of what are the bike pedestrian projects that the university is envisioning in the near future? It seems like I would think that may exist. If it does, it would be great to have somebody from sustainability or from the architect's office, present that to us, just so we're up to date on what the university's thinking. And so as we look ahead at our projects, how can they mesh better with them? So that might be a question.
Mark, that's great. And that type of question is something I would need to know, ahead of time, like when I speak with them, because there's nobody in that small group that I mentioned that's a part of the sustainability team. That's a different person. So it would be, if I brought all of them to this meeting today, that would have been a question that none of those people nor me could answer. Mm-hmm. So I love having the questions up front so I could then go to the right person who is over in facilities management division, over sustainability, and talk with him.
Yeah, so I'll send you that question as an email just so that you have that and you can figure out whether it's Kevin or whoever the best Laura Mathis or whoever the best person is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I see that Commissioner Myers has a question, but I think Teresa's main question was about are the people decision makers who have access to this information because it's part of their job versus you giving it to them. That's how I interpreted the question. So it sounds like you're still trying to form the group and get the right people in, right?
Well, no, I think the group is formed. That's the group I'm going to meet with. If there's a one-off question where I need to bring somebody else in, like sustainability, I'll bring them in for that question. I don't think, right now anyway. If there's a sustainability question every month, then maybe I need to have Kevin as part of the team. But I'll just take that one sustainability question to Kevin likely, or Laura, if she can't answer it since she is a part of the team. Now, to answer the question, this group has decision-making authority based on what's in their job description, right? So it depends on how deep you go in that. There still might be our VP might make that decision. Depends on how many layers it is, or if there's something where they're talking with the mayor about and the VP and president are getting involved. So I can't just say blanket, we are the people that can make all the decisions that need to be made related to this. Now, most of them will go through us, right, in some fashion. We're in that decision-making process, right? We're a part of that process. The process it doesn't happen without us, but we may not be able to make that decision on the spot for you.
Gotcha. Commissioner Myers?
Roswell and on all of you, just to sort of FYI on the Riverbend, that's in Commissioner Edwards' district, and we had a discussion of this. I don't know if any of you were able to listen in onto that at the agenda setting meeting last week. And I just talked to Manager Williams a little while ago today. And that no one seems to have a clarification on what's behind the preferred, not preferred. I might prefer chocolate ice cream, but if there's vanilla there, I'll go with that. So we're using those words, but no one has any clarification on that. And so if there's any way that can be addressed, because there are people making decisions on this, and in fact, it's on the agenda to vote on next week. And I know that Commissioner Edwards feels like he has not had communication. I don't know the background to it in terms of who he should have, wanted to, whatever, talk to about this. But when I've talked to him during the meeting and on phone, he doesn't have any more clarification than any of us have here, but he's putting together a commission to find option. So I'd be really interested if there's any clarification on that tomorrow. If any way, either someone like I could be on the phone if that's going to be addressed, or Russell could be on it so we can get this sort of direct information rather than making a decision next week. or if it's something that really UGA needs to consider more, and maybe Commissioner Russell would say, oh, based on what I learned, let's postpone that for a month while we figure something out. So any thoughts on that, Roswell?
Yeah, well, and I wasn't part of the group at all when that was discussed, so I don't know where those notes even came from. So, Ronnie, did you make that spreadsheet with the notes on the side, or do you know where those that comment, was it a quote? Was it from somebody on our team?
Just to confirm, yes, on the slideshow, and before we got into the details, I believe maybe slide 8 or 9, we do talk about the history part of UGA communication, and we quoted UGA officials, and I've taken permission, and I did mention to that person, hey, I'm going to use this quote word to word on, this is what you guys said. And so we quoted that, and we've been saying the same thing. They are supportive for connection, but they are not supportive to any concept that have heavy impact on their parcels. So how to measure that, and was that person the person making the decision? That's not something was clarified in that quote.
Yeah, and I would say that among the commissioners who are voting on it next week, what that means, and that could have been, I don't know. I think Ronnie had discussions with maybe Laura Mathis. I'm not sure who it was, but who might be able to clarify that or find out what's meant by that. Stephen,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Ronnie, do you know who it? Can you share with us who it is? I mean,
It was Laura Mathis, the person
Okay.
that I had communication with. Yes.
yeah. Okay. So guys, I'm not trying to be covert at all. So if there's something that someone on our team, said, and we need to know what that means, I mean, we need to hear from that person, or I need to go to that person, because I don't know. I wasn't even a part of the discussion. Even if I was, we need to make sure that we're talking about the same thing. Apples and apples, not something different. So and what was the language exactly? Was it the preferred language that's on that slide? Is that what we're talking specifically about? And that came from Laura. Okay, yeah, no problem. I'll ask her more about that. Or Lauren, when you speak with Allison, if you want to speak to that exact point, to make sure that even if the teammates we end up speaking with, if Allison, who will likely be a part of that because she's our outreach person, that Laura comes along too. Or if I need to ask her a direct question and bring that back. So however we want to do it is fine with me.
And if you want, to ask them if they'd rather talk to Russell and me separately after that, or anything else, that's fine. But if there is some information, I think that's crucial for decision making.
Yeah. So I'll talk to Allison tomorrow, and I will mention that the commission would really like to talk with someone now.
Yeah, and Lauren, as specific as you can be when you speak with her, the better, so that, because she's going to want to get to the right person too. And so if you're saying we have questions about a direct quote we got from Laura Mathis concerning X, Y, and Z, that helps her and helps us make sure the right person is here for the team.
If I can jump in for a second from staff. So as Commissioner Myers pointed out, this is definitely a work in progress with the Riverbend, and Manager Williams has been trying to open those doors of communication as well. I imagine that by tomorrow we're going to have some more information from UGA. That's the latest I've heard, and it's from the people that Roswell's mentioned, and their higher ups as well. So I think that we'll have a much clearer answer between the conversations that you're having and the ones that Manager Williams is having right now. I feel confident that by tomorrow we will have some much clearer information. In general, Roswell, those people are perfect. That's exactly the team that I would have put together. Those are our UGA contacts anytime we talk engineering or construction projects, and having Jimmy in there for finance, you got the right folks. So Teresa, to answer your question, yes, that is the right team to have for this.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Awesome. I feel like we're coming around full circle. Representatives, our staff, the University of Georgia, our appointed people, we're all going to be on the same page. This bodes well for future projects, and hopefully Riverbend too, right? Okay. Any other comments about this group that Roswell is forming, or Riverbend Road, or this topic before I move on. All right, thanks again, Roswell.
No
Next, I will turn it over to Stephen for staff updates. Floor is yours.
Okay, so I'm going to give an update on funding and the bike coordinator position, and Ronnie's going to talk us through some of our specific project timelines that we've got going on. I was really hoping tonight to have an announcement on the bike ped coordinator. The final paperwork is still going through HR. That's the speed of government. So unfortunately, I'll have to wait to make that announcement. Though I'm excited about our candidate and the conditional offers out there. So I'm hopeful that I'll be able to make an announcement to the group within the next week still. So just another teaser, drawing it out longer, but I think it's going to be good. I want to share, so before we dive into individual projects, and Ronnie's going to show us some timelines on what we've got right now, I wanted to share some of our kind of overall funding status. So let me share my screen real quick. All right, can y'all see the spreadsheets that I've got pulled up? Okay, so I'll start with bicycles because this is the easiest one to address. We are almost out of bicycle money, which isn't a bad thing. That means that we're moving forward on projects, but they're certainly expensive ones. So the way that these sheets work, and this is what I use to share with staff, you've got sort of the orange area or kind of peach area here that is our currently what funds we have in each account. And then what is in blue is tied up into current contracts right now. And then what's in purple is earmarked or allocated for future projects, for future current projects. So to really just kind of briefly talk through this, we've got two funding sources. There's two columns here that are funding sources for bicycles. We've got an old holdover of SPLOST 2011 and bikes, and then we've got our T-SPLOST 2018 fund. You know, this is not representative of everything that was originally in those funds because a lot of this has already been spent down. But from what's remaining, you can see that we've got some current contracts on, you know, for early design work on a few things. We're still working on that prioritization tool for how we're going to prioritize future projects. So that's tied up in some design here. And then future projects, we've got, of course, Cherokee, which now we realize is going to be a multi-use path. So that's bike funds tied into Cherokee. Jefferson River Road is split 50-50 as well. And then Barber Street is an estimate right now. And really what's here is basically saying that Barber Street is going to be expensive enough to take the remainder of T-SPLOST 2018 bike funds and still not really reach that 50% funding share between bike and ped. So that is our estimate, though remember that Barber has not been voted on, and neither has Riverbend. So it may be that after next week these things change. This is sort of just to the predictions that we've got right now. And then we have, you know, the final amount of money here in SPLOST 2011, which I imagine will help us pay for either Riverbend or Barber when it comes down to it. So for bikes, this one is an easier one to go over because no matter what, at the end of these projects, we're going to be out of bike money until the next T-SPLOST. I'll jump to PED unless y'all have a specific bike funding question. Okay. All right. So
Sorry,
when we get to pedestrian.
I did have a question about the Lumpkin funds. So that says encumbered. So we haven't spent that money because it looks like it's been done, right?
So it's Lumpkin, Rock Springs, and Hull is really all three segments that we're going to get restriped. They just were, the way they titled it was under Lumpkin.
I see. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so for sidewalks, we've got a few sources of funding. So we have some holdover money from our general capital funds, and that usually goes towards small sidewalk, in-house things that our staff can do, whether it's sidewalk repair or kind of gap requests in the past. It's been held and waiting to be used for any small project that we need. And I like to hold that a little separate because it's a lot easier to spend that money on really quick and small projects than it is to spend T-SPLOST funds. But our main sources of funding are still, again, a holdover from SPLOST 2011, which was sidewalks and safe routes to school funds, and then our T-SPLOST 2018 pedestrian program. So we have a lot more that's kind of currently going on with PED projects. You'll notice we're wrapping up our final sidewalk gap projects. So that's the Holman and Magnolia sidewalks that are finishing out that program. We've got a placeholder for Barber when that comes through, and for Cherokee when design fees are ready. Riverbend, Jefferson River Road, wrapping up, and I think this will probably be done. We may actually be completely done and can release this money back, but there was the Barnett Shoals sidewalk over near Carriage Lane that kind of finished that final connection. So that one's wrapping up. And then another small one that along Atlanta Highway, so over near Camellia and Sycamore Drive. If you picture over on I guess it's the north side of Atlanta Highway near the Athens West business area. And that's the one that we got a multimodal safety and access grant to help us do small grant kind of sidewalk gaps. So speaking of which, we should, that's one that may be for grants and data folks, that might be something to look into to see if they re-up that next year. It was paid out at, leftover LMIG funds basically to cover a project like that. So we've gotten about $500,000 through them for small sidewalk gaps total, and I'd be eager to get more of that if we have some projects that fit. And then really it's the upcoming stuff, right? So we've got the big ones, Cherokee, Jefferson, Riverbend, and Barber. But even once we fund all of those, we're going to probably have some more money left over at the end for our PED projects. The way that SPLOST tiering works, this money will probably be unlocked, and I think it's all 2020 or FY23 money. So that gives us some time. But Lauren, when you mentioned our work plan for the year, and that's going to be a future or a topic that we get to, I'd recommend thinking about the next set of PED projects, because soon we'll need to be starting to think about allocating that money. And of course, we'll be figuring out how to get more funds through T-SPLOST 2023, but I imagine we'll have enough to do at least one, possibly two more sidewalk projects with what we've got. So overall, that's sort of that's the gist of funds, and I'll take any questions on that.
Thanks, that's really helpful. Appreciate it.
It looks like Commissioner Myers had something in the chat that says.
So Stephen, this means that only one of the 5 projects listed on page 64 for the T-SPLOST projects is being funded.
For bikes?
Yeah.
That's right. So, and that's a good point. So while when we look at all of the potential PED projects and that kind of first run of pedestrian projects, we've reached all of them, which is great. But when you look at bike projects, we're only really getting to Barber Street. And if, as a reminder, some of the other bike projects that were kind of proposed as the first round of Tier 1 bike projects that would have been Millage, Cedar Shoals. Carol, are you looking at the rest of them? Can you finish that list for me?
Yeah. It was Barber Street, South North Millage from Prince to Baxter, North Avenue from Danielsville Road to Willow Street, Hawthorne from Oglethorpe to West Broad, and Cedar Shoals from Whit Davis to Gaines School.
Thank you. Yeah, and so what you'll notice first, bike projects are very expensive. Even more so than sidewalks in a lot of cases. But also, the trend has been with these PED projects, as we've seen, for them to turn into multi-use trail projects, which certainly eat into the bike budget. I'm value neutral on that as staff goes, but I think that kind of explains where we're really going to need a much larger bike fund in the next T-SPLOST, because when it comes down to standalone bike projects, they are kind of jockeying for position against multi-use trail 50-50 splits. So that is one thing to think about with our next T-SPLOST ask. And each of those also had their own issues, just with the ability, scope to do some of those bike projects. Maybe we're being optimistic and overreaching what was possible. And that's something to think about as we revisit that next set of projects. Do we try and go for something that are easier, low-hanging fruit, or do we really focus on, some of these really big but very beneficial projects? And that's a question I think we'll probably need to pose to the group.
Yeah, and just to provide some insight to the group, our sidewalk budget from T-SPLOST was much bigger. And so it was $11 million or just under $11 million, and then just under $6 million for bikes. So Stephen, is it that the bike projects, when they're standalone projects, they tend to be more complicated? And that's why I tend to go to implement bike projects when they're part of a restriping effort?
Ronnie can correct me here. I don't necessarily think they're more complicated. I think the ones that we picked are very complicated. Millage Avenue has been a really tough one. North Avenue, the goal was to get the build grant to help that out, and we just have keep pushing for that. It's just a large project. Cedar Shoals was one where it worked if it was in tandem with paving, and so the timing hasn't synced up with that. So I don't think in general that they're necessarily more complicated, but yeah, those certainly have been.
No, I do agree with you, Stephen. And back to Cedar Shoals, we've done some work there, put together different alternatives. At that point, Athens in Motion was not established yet, and you guys were not meeting yet. Maybe it's a good time to just, when the agenda is light and we have a new bike and ped coordinator, maybe it's a good time to refresh in our memory of what we have done so far and talk about the alternatives we have developed through the consultant, and to know that we have this on the shelf whenever we ask for money, whenever we have knowledge of a grant, we can also pursue it. Just the fact that we have not an approved alternative, but something that we can present and say, yeah, we would like to do something like this, and also be aware that we didn't just sit and not do anything, knowing that we were directed to look at Cedar Shoals, North Avenue, and so on. Every one of those gotten some progress, but none of those gotten an approved corridor or approved concept.
Okay. Thank you, Ronnie, for that insight. I think 2021 will be the year we get the build grant.
We're hoping, yes.
Yes. Any other questions for Stephen about our funding? Thank you, Stephen.
All right. Well, I'll turn it over to Ronnie about some more project-specific kind of timelines and where we are with what's in the mix.
Sure. Well, thank you, Stephen. And trying to share my screen here. Let's see if this works. All right. So in front of you is a timeline. This is internal document, really not ready to be published, but I am willing to share what we got here. And forgive me for using terminology that we may understand it in-house, but it may not be clear of what I'm talking about. What I want to get your attention to is two highlighted or pointed to timelines. The first one is highlighted in yellow, And this is the next step we're expecting on each project. So I start with Barber Street, as this is the one that we will be bringing to you guys tentatively next meeting to talk about the different alternative and cost estimates we have developed. We've asked our consultants to prepare a task order to help us navigate through that, because they did make a matrix and selection of typical sections for each block. And we felt like having hopefully a new bike and ped coordinator would benefit from such help from the consultants who developed, that would be tool engineers who helped us to develop those concepts. So just before Mayor and Commission work session in March, we expect to bring this to you guys in February and discuss in a presentation the alternatives, like I said, on Barber Street. There is a big possibility that we may push another month because we have not had good progress. The holidays really impacted us a bit, and so we'll keep you posted on that. Tentatively, in a month, we'll meet to talk about Barber Street. And notice to proceed, that's the green dash line here with green color. The notice to proceed for construction, currently we're looking at April 2023. It might be a couple months earlier, but not much earlier than that, following our capital improvement process. It's a lengthy process that will ensure adequate communication with our public and with Athens in Motion and other interest group, as well as the citizen oversight committees. So that's for Barber Street. Cherokee Road, this is the first one that we presented to you guys. I have some history items of when that was presented. Currently, as the yellow highlight shows, we anticipate a notice to proceed on this one right after Mayor and Commission identify the funding strategy. The funding strategy since September has been the question. We went back and forth asking for information, and we identified that, you know what, there was a defined option, Commission defined option, and we would have loved if we had a clear direction on the funding strategy, and therefore we put an agenda in this cycle to define that, so therefore we can issue a notice to proceed. The task order is on hand and waiting for that funding approval. So once we have that approved by Mayor and Commission, potentially February 2nd, we can issue a notice to proceed a few days later, as soon as we have that signature from the mayor. Notice to proceed for this project somewhere around September 2022. So we're hopeful we can get this one rolling. Jefferson River Road, the task for the engineer consultant, T.Y. Lin, is at the mayor's office, and we are hoping to get that signature done and get a PO issued and a notice to proceed by the end of this month. Once this would be the first project going through the design officially. So I would say congratulations to all the people who wanted to see a multi-use path and improvement on Jefferson River Road. River Bend, as you are aware, you guys discussed this, and the timeline shows that construction may start as early as January 2023. Like I said, this is internal information, so I don't tend to share it as this is a live document. We continue to change it as we go. In terms of big picture projects that we have and that Athens in Motion may care to know, I'll be gladly to share with you some of the projects we have. So I talked about the first 4 projects. Tallahassee Road Bridge, this is that bridge over CSX. We are currently in the final design and coordination with CSX and utilities. That phase is at 51%, you can see in the middle of the screen. That project includes a sidewalk and a multi-use path that goes through the project, and then almost the entire segment of the project, or the limits of the project. The Mitchell Bridge, Tallahassee, and Loop 10 ramp, this is an intersection improvement. It's the next intersection improvement project that would be going through concept development. So you will be guys involved in that concept approval phase. We are early in that phase. It's 97% to put the plans together, but we are on hold just for other projects to move forward and for budget to be allocated, and then we'll talk about the next project on lines. The West Broad and Hancock, this is for your information. You know, we're working on the concept report. This is a construction funded, federally funded project, while the engineering is funded by, is it intersection improvement, or what's the program, Stephen, here?
That's right.
It's the West Broad safety, pedestrian safety.
Yeah, is that the roundabout funded by
Yes.
the West Broad bucket from T-SPOST?
Yes, thank you for confirming. So that project continues to go through the concept report and working with GDOT to navigate their requirements for the design. We will be updating the citizen and interest group, the West Broad neighborhood group, with updates in March. We'll keep you guys updated if you like to know what we have, and we may present to you the latest and greatest concept on that. Mainly, it has a lot of pedestrian connectivity, and that's what's important to us, really, beside the traffic flow and the roundabout itself. Hawthorne, Oglethorpe, you guys have seen this before. We talked about it when Hillary was here. This is going through a preliminary design phase approval by Mayor and Commission. We may mention it to you. There's not much really alternative to look at or a lot of changes. We're just going to let you guys know when this is going in front of Mayor and Commission for preliminary plan approval.
Ronnie, can you hold for a second? I believe that Commissioner Myers has her hand raised. Carol,
Yes.
did you want to ask a question? Or did it, or is this from?
Well, I just didn't know how to like take my hand down.
Okay, I just wanted to be
Alert
sure.
on that.
I'm like, oh no, I'm missing people's hands raising.
No problem. Chase
Okay.
Street, this is the TAP funded, federally funded through the TAP grant project. Chase Street corridor plan was approved by Mayor and Commission in 2018. We were approved for federal funding at 80% for the engineering phase only. And therefore, we are working with a purchasing department or division to secure an on-call design consultant to perform the engineering consultant work and design for this project. We are in the master contract phase, and as soon as we get that executed, we'll be starting with surveying and initial early design phase tasks. It is anticipated to begin as early as February. So we're crossing our fingers to continue effort to get that master contract authorized. Carriage Lane, this is Carriage Lane and Barnett Shoals. They're both bundled together as one project. They are near completion at this point, and we are just to receive as-built soon. So congratulations on the first complete street in Athens, Barnett Shoals. Seagraves, this is a live stream pipe replacement. There's no sidewalk. Barnett Shoals, I gave you an update on that one. Holman and Magnolia, we spoke earlier. I think Stephen spoke about that. The contractor is making great progress. Holman is 95% completed. Magnolia is in the early stage at this point, and if you drive through there, you'll see some work taking place, and we do expect that to be on time. I'm sorry, I don't have that completion on time. I think it's about 3 or 4 months from today to be completed. The West Broad construction, that's the sidewalk Stephen talked about. And the last I want to mention is our future pavement program. Historically, we brought to you guys, and you're probably going to see a list next month of roads that we're going to be paving next year, tentatively. And if there's any roads that you would like to see bike enhancement to, we need to identify those together. So we'll make that effort to talk about that list. Now, I do want to note one thing. As far as I can see from the list, that the draft list or tentative list that I have, there is none that may qualify for a bike enhancement. However, I could be wrong, because all of these streets mainly are short segments and located within subdivisions. But anyway, I just want to make sure, we will share this with you in case we miss something, and we'll get it taken care of. Any questions about any of those projects or any projects I did not mention? I'll be more happy to answer.
There's a lot going on. Y'all are pretty maxed out, right?
Yes, indeed.
Let me try to stop sharing. Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ronnie. I think that's it from staff.
Okay. We did. I did put on the agenda because Teresa had mentioned going over or talking about the Atlanta Highway story map. Do we have?
Yeah, you want to do that right now?
Yeah, it looks like we have time.
All right, I can get through that pretty quickly. So, and I'll give you fair warning. They just sent me the new draft like right when we started the meeting. So I'm gonna follow that link and see if I can walk us through it. But bear with me. And Teresa, you've seen it as well, at least the first version. So if I miss anything, catch me. All right, let's see. Share. Okay. Are you seeing the story map? Okay. So like I said, work in progress still. They're still making some changes, but I think this is good for us to know how these look, because we'd like to have a template like this for pretty much any of our projects, whether it's corridors, bike, ped, etc. Knowing that we're in a digital age, especially with COVID, public forums have been interesting. So having visuals that are easy to navigate online and then corresponding paper documents that still give people the same amount of information has been a goal for the last few months. So I have to give a shout out to our GIO, Joseph D'Angelo, and his staff have been excellent to work with. And we've got quite a few UGA interns who are helping to crank out these story maps. So they've done a great job. This one in particular is a big one, and Atlanta Highway, and it's, notice that it's the first of what, 4 corridors that's going to have something similar. So Atlanta Highway, Lexington, Prince, and West Broad. So I would imagine they're going to follow this template. But what it does is it takes people through a visual of kind of an overall picture of what sub-projects could be included within these corridor funds. This is all T-SPLOST money. And then it gives people the ability to click on, to zoom in, to click on individual projects and to see what they're calling the project data sheets. So to just kind of like give you an example, let's jump into one. So here's you can manipulate a number of different ways. You can zoom in from the map and click on, where you're interested in. And so let's say I click on Atlanta Highway Sidewalk, it zooms in specifically to that. And on the left side, it pops up with what's called the project data sheet, which you can further enhance to look at. And it kind of shows you a concept of what we're looking at. I believe it tells you, so where exactly this goes. Let me exit out of this. Hang on just a second. So you can come at it from the map, but you can also come at it from these project data sheets on the left-hand side. So you can find what's interested to you. So for example, let's pick this intersection at Mitchell Bridge and Timothy. Again, it zooms in on the map for you, and then you can further zoom in on the project data sheet. So this sort of introduction tab is giving people basics of each of the projects. I think that Teresa pointed out in our meeting that there really needs to be more of a an intro on, hey, why are you here as the general public? And that might need to be moved to the top so that there's kind of more text and narrative down at the bottom. But I think what would be beneficial is this very thing at the very bottom, how can you help, might actually need to be at the very top. That explains, like, here's why you're here at this website and what you can do to have your voice heard. And then the rest of it is more an explanation of the map itself and the different identifiers like project budget. You know, they show dollar amounts and what that actually means. So that's all within the introduction tab. And then there's multiple tabs that really isolate different project categories, which you can get to by clicking on the tab or the next button. So each of these just gives you another map with a kind of more in-depth dive into what each of those types of projects are. Again, it gives you the opportunity to click either from this kind of left-hand side or from the map itself, and gives you another link to the project data sheet. And the reason I keep mentioning these, this is all a PDF, like all these project data sheets are also a PDF that are going to be available to people, whether it's at an on-site pop-up event or if someone requests data, we can send it as a PDF so that, that people who don't necessarily have internet access or want to look at these, kind of physical copies will have all the same detail that the people online will have. Now how do I leave this page? I might just have to click the back button. Yeah, okay. And then this is another work in progress, that there are actually multiple ways to start a survey within the story map. So you can go to the survey tab and enter your information there, or on these individual project pop-ups, you can also click comments and it'll bring you to an ArcGIS or a survey 123, so that you can comment on specific projects, which I think is useful, but then also you can comment on overall program and kind of rate your priorities for type of projects, that kind of thing. So this is an example of what a specific project survey would look like. So I think I don't know which one I remember clicking on. It says, it's about medians. So this one's saying, would you support putting medians in the middle of the Atlanta highway or not? Specific comments, and then your info. So those are much simpler than the overall project survey. I'm going to go back, and there's that survey tab at the end, which is a more comprehensive survey. And it again, what we're debating was, you want to capture as many people as possible and get relevant information, but you also don't want them to just, get exhausted with the amount of questions and just leave the page without submitting. So there's a fine balance to meet there. If any of you who have done survey creation before know it's a fine balance. So we try to make it as easy as possible. So the first thing they ask is how to rate your values of the different types or categories of projects. And the four categories they came up with in this case are bike and pedestrian infrastructure, traffic management, transit, and then corridor aesthetics. So you kind of pick which of those types of categorize you value most. And then it's more usage questions after that. How do you use the corridor, whether it's through transit, through bike ped purposes, whether you are more interested in traffic operations and why, and aesthetics and why, and then general comments. So it's not a final product. We've had plenty of comments from the user group that want to see some tweaks to it, but it's the general kind of skeleton of what these might look like in the future. So hopefully that was useful. And I would recommend, if you've got some specific comments on this one, maybe through Teresa, who's a voting member of that group, you could send those through, and I do believe there's still time, even when this is up and live, to make changes to it. So, yeah.
Stephen, I noticed, like, first of all, I love the way that we're taking public these maps. They're so great. I don't have to flip through between tabs or bring up Google Maps. It's just amazing. Is it possible with these forms for the user to get an email copy of the forms that they fill out? Sometimes I've lost track with what things I commented on, what things I haven't. Is that an option with this program?
I will certainly ask. In fact, I'll start a running question list right now, so I'll put that as the very first one.
Any other questions or comments for Stephen about this form, or Teresa?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I really just joined the user group, and I was very impressed with how much work they had done in a pretty short time to put this together, and how well it was designed from a systems perspective, because, you know, I can see how it's very flexible and kind of modular. So it can be, you can make it behave in lots of different ways to, you know, suit your user. So congratulations.
I think it's congratulations to all of us for something that's actually usable for the public, right?
Yeah, I love this stuff. Okay, thank you, Stephen. And we'll come back to this topic of the corridor committees when we get to my chair report and discussion. But before we do that, I want to talk about our Bike Athens letter of support, and I'm going to turn this over to Mark. Mark, you're muted.
I guess I should have had that ready to go. So we prepared a letter of support for Bike Athens, who was applying. There's a governor's office of highway safety, does grants, and Bike Athens has been funded annually for quite a while. And they use it for education programs and to supplement their, support their work in the community. We looked at that same opportunity, the GOHS, to look at a possibility that might fund an Athens in Motion project to enhance signage throughout the community. We had several meetings. I attended a training session. It kind of became clear from the training session, and then even clearer after talking to their staff, that this was not the kind of project that they were interested in funding. So we pulled the plug on it. We decided not to move forward. If they're not going to be interested in funding that project, which is, you know, they have the, you know, prerogative to do that, and they have their focus. And I'm glad we got that information now and not, you know, 2 months later. But along the way, we also had conversations with Elliot Caldwell and folks at Bike Athens, and they said they were reapplying and on a fairly short timeline. And so they requested a letter of support within, I said, how long do I have? And he said, tomorrow at 6. So put together a letter. It was phrased as coming from me as a member of Athens in Motion, but not representing Athens in Motion. However, we have an updated letter that we'd like to submit so they can potentially supplement their application. That is an official endorsement of Athens in Motion supporting their grant. And let me dig it up here. It's a very messy day on my desktop today.
Yeah, I'm sorry I did not link this in our agenda. I left it off. Sorry.
I've got coming up right here. There, yeah. Letters. There we go. Letter of support, Bike Athens. Title, January 23rd. Okay, so I will share my screen here. Oh boy, which one is it? I'll just share my whole screen so you can see my messy desktop. And did it share? No. Apologies. Okay, now can you see it?
Yes, and it is tiny. Can you zoom in?
I will try to zoom in.
You could try Command plus plus.
I did. I'm
Yeah.
I'm zooming in. Yeah. I'm old, but I'm not that bad.
Oh, sorry. It wasn't an ageist.
Hold them at the same time. What?
What?
You kids, stop it. Okay. Can you see it now? Is that better? Okay.
Yeah. So you should have had a chance to review this letter. So this is, again, is this your letter or is this the one that's been modified?
It's been modified. It says the last paragraph is all that I changed.
Yeah, and that's hopefully we will all vote unanimously to pass over this letter to Bike Athens. Again, because of the deadline, we couldn't submit a letter that had our full support because, we're a government citizen commission, so we have to vote and have things on record and follow processes. But hopefully now we can do that. So, because our understanding is when the grant gets kicked back to Bike Athens for revisions, they'll be able to attach an updated letter, which will hopefully have the full support of the Athens in Motion Commission. Any questions or comments for Mark? Can't see all your faces, so. Okay. If there are none, I will entertain a motion for Mark to submit this letter to Bike Athens, saying that Bike Athens has the full support of the Athens in Motion Commission. Motion, anyone?
Okay, I'll do it. I move that we accept this letter and have Mark send it.
A second it.
All right. Who was that who seconded it?
James.
Okay, so James seconded it. All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand. Aye. All right. Well, we are grateful to Bike Athens. I think of Bike Athens as one of our two parents, really. Bike Athens and Athens-Clarke County got together. They had a baby, and it was the Athens in Motion Commission. So we, we owe them a lot.
They didn't have a baby, they had a litter.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
A litter.
I'll send it along.
Thank you. Great. We are making wonderful progress. So we will move on now to my commission report. I have something on here. I need to follow up with Blaine about our budget request, and I have not done that because we did request some money this year. And I did check in with Carol about the best way to do that, and she suggested I follow up with Blaine. So I need to do that. We, after our special call meeting earlier this month to approve the Firefly alternates recommendation.
Who would you like to FaceTime with?
Oh, wait, whose audio is going? Somebody wanted to FaceTime. Okay. I think Mark is talking, but I can't hear him.
When I hold the touchpad down too long, it pops up this thing and says, "Who do you want to FaceTime with?" I have no idea why. You see, I am old and I don't understand technology.
Tell it you're FaceTiming with all your transportation homies right now. Okay. Okay, so I sent the Firefly alternates. I sent it to all the commissioners and the mayor. I heard back from Commissioner Myers, and Commissioner Houle acknowledged receiving the. They will discuss the Firefly alternates during the work session on February 9th. So thank you guys. If you filled out the public comment form back in January, I would encourage you all to write to your commissioner personally, sharing your personal thoughts about the alternates, because this might be a case where, squeaky wheel gets the grease, and we just want to make sure that they have all the information about before they go in and choose the route. And you guys are experts. There's a reason you're on this commission. So please reach out to your commissioner. I will reach out to mine and probably a few more. Next, corridor committees. So as you heard, Teresa is going to serve on the Atlanta Highway Committee, and she is. Teresa, do you have, I know you kind of gave us some insight about your first meeting. Is there anything else you would like to report back?
Well, I sat in on 2 meetings, and then Commissioner Hamby asked me if I would join the user group. So my first meeting was just, I don't know, was it a week ago, Stephen? Roughly, thereabouts. But anyway, it's very exciting. It's nice to see kind of a comprehensive look at these corridors and all the projects that link up with them. And, so if any of y'all want to get involved in a different corridor, I highly recommend it. And I think we could be very helpful, and, and they can be helpful to us as well.
So I will start, I have a note to include time on our agenda for future meetings for updates from corridor committee folks. There's the Prince Avenue Corridor Committee, which is tentative. I don't know if I can announce that yet. And then Lexington. I know that Commissioner Myers wanted to say a few words, particularly about Lexington.
Start video. I will first. Hi everyone again. It's so much fun not sharing the meeting. But Mark, Manager Williams, there's a lot of use of titles here that I have to start using all the time because it seems to be the protocol.
It's Professor Abel, by the way.
Okay. Yeah, and asked me actually if I could recommend some people from Athens in Motion to serve on the corridor groups for Prince Avenue and for Lexington. And at the same time, someone from the Lexington corridor group reached out to me about the need for someone with a real bike emphasis. So I'm not sure how all those things came together. But I reached out to Mark because he works and lives right there, and he's been involved in Prince Avenue. And also there's also a meeting tomorrow, and it's the meetings are at a very unfriendly worker time. I think, what are they, 10 or 11 in the morning? Yeah. And so hopefully, I don't know who's in charge of that, but today I had a back and forth with Blaine, and he was just wanted to know why you were the ideal person, and just so he could write something down, and then he was like sending this off. So I'm not sure if you got an invite or not. Did you? I don't know. Stephen, I don't know how involved you are on that.
I'm on all of these. Do you want me to? I can send something to Keith Sanders and see if it's ready to send Mark an invite. I can make that happen.
Yeah, that would be great, because I want Mark there. My understanding is that there's a big GDOT is also putting in money on the Prince Avenue corridor and has a strong presence on the committee in terms of its desires. So I'm sure Mark would be great. But here's the other thing. There's also the Lexington Road corridor. I'm wondering if there's anyone who has a particular connection to the Lexington Corridor Committee because they live that way. I know I live over here, but I don't know if anyone else lives there. Lauren, you're like at the very beginning of it if you cross over that way. And does anyone have any connection to that area of town that they would be interested in working with that group?
Yeah, do we have anyone else who lives on East Side or East Athens?
Well, there is Jake who lives further out and may, travel through that corridor, but of course he's not here today. I hope he's healing well with his finger situation.
I'm extreme Athens off Morton Road.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I rode by your house.
Miss Shoal Creek.
Yeah, okay. Are you interested in participating in that? Roswell?
Not if they meet at that work unfriendly times.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be a big problem for them.
Yeah. Do we know when they, Stephen, when does Lexington meet?
Let me pull up my calendar. Give me a minute. Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, and they do have I'll just say that they also have they have a lot of talk in there on multi-use paths and TADs and Greenway. There was something else I was going to tell you all. Yeah, communicate with your commissioners on anything on Athens in Motion. This is public, but I would say that actually writing people directly to their emails is really effective as well. Because it comes in a certain format when it comes through those forms, so you might be able to get more attention writing directly with a nice strong subject line that identifies what you're writing about. Anyway, that's all I have to say on that, but I think it's really important to have that presence so that all these silos could be connected. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Stephen?
I don't have an upcoming Lexington scheduled yet, so it looks like that one's might not be on the books yet.
Okay, Roswell, I'll reach out to Blaine and see when he knows, like if he knows anything about when it's usually scheduled, and then maybe I'll communicate with you and Jake and see what you think, like whose schedule it fits with.
In the past, it's been like the second Thursday of the month, and it's been a morning meeting, like 10 o'clock. But I don't know what they're going to do for the new year. So
okay, yeah, it's kind of strange. Anyway, that's it. That's all I have here.
Okay.
If I could get clarification, are you wanting potential volunteers from the community? I was just thinking about maybe reaching out to members of Covenant Presbyterian Church who are on
No, I was specifically looking for someone from Blaine. Was like the bike advocacy world or the Athens in Motion. Yeah. But having Athens in Motion and someone connected to that part of community, I think would be really helpful.
And even if they're not living directly there, having someone from Athens in Motion, I think would be really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is there anyone else who would like to be part of this? Or we'll just start with Roswell and Jake, East Siders.
Yeah, and I hope that they would be amenable to. I know this is hard on you, Stephen, because you probably want to go home at the end of the day. But if we could maybe move that one to after hours so Roswell could participate, that would be great. And I know Jake has his hands in a lot of pots right now. Or I guess his hands. I don't know what his hands are doing, but so it would be great if it fit with Roswell's schedule if he could be on there. They could meet at a good time.
And I would say just let me know what time it is prior to asking them to move it, just because I don't want the whole group to move for me. So I'll try to see what I can figure out. So just let me know.
I'm just imagining it might be a problem for other people too who have jobs that they should be attending to.
Yeah,
like you, Eugene.
Yeah, I know it's rough because we have our jobs, but we're lucky to have our jobs. That's how I feel about this pandemic. Okay, thank you, Carol. Okay, next on the list we need to start working on our work plan for the year. Some ideas based on our conversation in December, and this is when you were not here, Stephen. Maybe coming up with intersection recommendations and revisions to the plan. So one of the big things we did last year is we developed a process for additions and revisions to the Athens in Motion plan. It is supposed to be a living document. And so I have a road in mind for us to put through that, which I'll talk about more in a moment. Stephen mentioned this earlier, our T-SPLOS 2020 what else? What other ideas that we have? I think is to either like make a committee to come up with our work plan, or this is something I need to do as chair. We did this last year. For our work plan.
Can I put in a plug for something related to the Atlanta corridor, which is something that we talked about a long time ago, which is the pedestrian loop connecting Timothy Road and Mitchell Bridge Road, which would then complete most of a loop, a walkable loop around the city of Athens. And, you know, I don't know if that's something that we want to take up, but I know that Atlanta Highway Corridor does have that included in the survey. And, you know, so if Athens in Motion wants to take a look at it and weigh in, I think that would be great.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out the best way to go about that, because the roads in the loop, I believe that most of them are in the plan in some form.
Yes.
So then,
it's a matter of reprioritizing.
Okay.
Is what it is.
Mm-hmm. So then, would we, going through our process, would we look at each of those segments separately? Be reprioritized to a certain level? I think that's how.
I think it's kind of hard to figure it out right now, because the way the Atlanta Highway Survey is asking the questions, they're asking, do we want to create a brand new 10-foot wide multi-user path from Macon Highway to Atlanta Highway, and then do the same thing from Atlanta Highway to whatever point on Mitchell Bridge Road? Or do we want to put in a 5-foot sidewalk on Timothy Road that would connect to the existing 5-foot sidewalk, which ends at Fox Trace? So it would go from Macon Highway to Fox Trace, and then if there are any other gaps along the way, would fill those in. So it's a little bit hard to figure out exactly how to describe it, and you know, I don't know how to put it in the work plan.
I guess I think thinking about how that would link into other existing and funded projects and planned projects is going to be important. I will say, having lived on Timothy for about 6 to 8 months while our house was being built, and we walked that sidewalk, and it was frustrating because it was kind of a crappy sidewalk and it would go from side to side of the road. And so I do sympathize. And there are a lot of neighborhoods along that corridor, and it's very high speed. So, you know, I think it would benefit from at least sidewalks on both sides of the street, if that's possible.
Right. So, I mean, there are just a lot of questions that need to be looked at. And, you know, of course, every question has a price tag associated with it. So then you got to figure out where the funds are going to come from. And Atlanta Highway has some funds for pedestrian projects that could be used for that. You know, we can also do a T-SPLOST proposal for 2023. I mean, there's just lots of different ways to go about it. And you know, I'm still trying to figure out how all this stuff works. So, and I'll say one final thing about poor old Timothy Road, you know, and again, like, I know that in my position, if it were that bad, I could simply go buy another house. So it's not about, you know, it's not about taking care of, you know, the people that don't need the help, but there's a lot of single family homes that face Timothy Road that are not part of communities. There are a number of African-American families who I believe have been there for quite a long time. And then there's a church, at that bend that goes towards Macon Highway. And, there are a lot of people who use the bus from that part of town. And really, there's just nothing there for anyone, and it's designated a Shero, but, you take your bike out on Timothy Road and you're going to be in the ditch in no time. So, I think it's a worthy project. Is it the most important project in Athens? Probably not, but it's something to look at. And it also does have the effect of unifying the city in a certain way that really could be transformative. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Okay, thank you, Teresa.
We still need to put the finishing touches on the complete streets edits, don't we?
Talk about that in our projects meeting. It looks like Carol reminded me that that the policy committee took up our work plan. So maybe that we can do pretty soon, as we because we have just a little bit more to do on complete streets, just that final stretch. So I will kick it over to that group, and they'll just magically do it.
Hey, Lauren, can I just clarify that? I think what we did last year, after we started doing some things, there was some communication from the mayor or the manager that if we were going to deal with policy issues, that we needed to put them forth first in terms of like a complete streets policy, what we were working on. We didn't have to say to them, hey, we're going to be reviewing what Stephen and Transportation Public Works. But I mean, I think in terms of including that policy in some sort of like brainstorming for the future might be a good prioritization, whether or not it's putting that prioritization practice, for example, into practice, putting together a list of possible sidewalk and bicycle projects for the next T-SPLOST tier. But in particular, we were told to bring forth a list of policy things. So if you remember, we worked on that in the policy committee and moved that forward.
Thank you for that reminder and that clarification, Carol. It was so long ago. It was before COVID. Remember those times? Remember when we met in person and we talked about this stuff? And there was like a projector. I just wanted to share one comment that we got. This is one of the reasons why like Sycamore Drive keeps coming up. I'm thinking about this road, and Carol brought it up. If y'all remember, Carol brought it up as an example that was left off of the plan unintentionally, that receives a lot of pedestrian traffic. And Sycamore Drive has several apartment complexes back there. It's pretty isolated. It's off of Atlanta Highway. Let me pull up this comment. And someone reached out to the mayor and commission and one of the comments she had is about living on Sycamore Drive. Her name is Erica, and she did say I could share this comment with y'all. She said, in September of 2020, I moved to Sycamore Drive. This street does not have a sidewalk, and there isn't sufficient room to walk beside the road to get to the main street and the nearest bus stop. A lot of times one has to walk in the street to get to the main road. There are several apartment complex buildings located on this street as well, and a sidewalk is needed to me so adults and children don't have to walk in the street. If you were to ride a car down Sycamore Drive, you may not be able to see the concerns best versus if you actually walk down the road on both sides. I have to walk in the street sometimes, several times a day, so I just want to inform someone that it doesn't feel safe. Now, Sycamore Drive used to not be isolated. It used to be part of Epps Road, and it's actually a very special place. If you walk to the end of Sycamore Drive and go just past where the street dead ends, you will find the remains of Old Epps Bridge, the original bridge. And so it's pretty cool. And this bridge comes up and for some ideas for trail connectivity maybe in the future as a way to cross The Middle Oconee, maybe we can make use of the supports. These are just ideas, but it's really a pretty neat place, and it's awful that it's been cut off so much. I have been at the intersection to turn on Sycamore Drive, and it was night, and I saw not one, but two moms with two strollers crossing Atlanta Highway to go down Sycamore Drive. And I have walked to that street recently. I've just become interested in it. So once we get our bike ped coordinator position in place, I will make a suggestion that we put Sycamore Drive as our first possible addition to the Athens in Motion plan. We'll run it through the process that we have carefully crafted. That's the holdup, as I want to wait on that new position. But I just want to go ahead and share that comment.
Lauren, I just want to ask, is Sycamore part of the Atlanta Corridor funding project?
Teresa, can you unmute?
I said, that's a good question. I think Stephen might have better intelligence on that.
Yeah, because there's...
So the extent of the scope that we were looking at, I believe we were looking at from the bridge all the way down to like 78, and this is on the other side of the bridge over the river. But I don't know. I have to go back to the original T-SPLOS project scope and see if they put some geographic parts to it, because it's certainly on Atlanta Highway. So.
Well, I can see, I'm looking at the map now, it's Atlanta Highway until the river, and then once you're east of the river, it's West Broad.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah, that's
true. I mean, that's an artificial construct. It's the same road. No one would know that. But
right. Lauren, I'm glad you brought this one up. This came through to staff as well. And actually last year, actually September 2019, Hillary put together a roadway safety audit for Sycamore Drive. And one of the recommendations on there was sidewalk. At that point, she had two recommendations, which were sort of what I echo now, which one is that we put these type of requests through that prioritization tool in the process that you all have created. As a reminder, here's that document that the committee put together, right? So it's got the step-by-step of how to add a new project or reprioritize an existing project. So yeah, that would start with the bike ped coordinator with a list of these, or with individual projects, kind of putting them through the tool. And I believe what we talked about was doing that on a yearly basis, of kind of, batching out some of these potential projects, and then bringing it back to the Athens in Motion group to prioritize, to see where they should fall. And the same thing could happen with existing projects as well, because as we know, as things change, as things are built out, it's time to kind of reevaluate existing projects as well. So I'd say that's the first. That's the first option. The other option, and this is something I wanted to maybe put on the yearly work plan for y'all, and it's up to you if you want to do this or not. We had talked a while ago, and it is written into the Athens in Motion master plan, that there could be future consideration for funding of local small sidewalk projects that aren't part of the master plan, and that's something that I'd want you to weigh available funds, right? So you don't want to steal from the Athens in Motion master plan list funding from it, but at the same time, there's really no funding mechanism right now for people who want a sidewalk in their neighborhood, right? Or a sidewalk along a small local road that's not part of the Athens in Motion plan. Aside from putting it through that yearly prioritization tool, and I think we as a group know that like neighborhood sidewalks are going to be at the bottom of that list, no matter how you put it through. So it may be that you all consider building a funding source, a pot of money that's specific for local small sidewalk construction.
Can you mute yourself? I think we can hear your background noise. It's very exciting at your place. So Stephen, would this relate to one of our charges in the Athens in Motion plan is one of our goals was to have a line item budget for sidewalk construction. Now we know that like $1 million sounds like a lot of money, but it's not in terms of construction. Is that something that this pot of money could be used for? Like if we could just get a line item from the mayor and commission.
Absolutely. And really, when you're talking big projects, $1 million is not a lot, but think about the size of Sycamore. Sycamore Drive is actually a really good example. It's a very short dead end road that could be a project that's done by in-house staff. So you don't have to, contract out those type of things. And that's usually a lot cheaper. The first Athens in Motion project that was completed was King Avenue. And the reason that was done so quickly was because it was all done by in-house staff, much cheaper and quicker than we can do with a contractor. So I think $1 million is not a bad ask for something like this.
I want to just say one thing, Stephen, thank you for sharing that diagram of the process. We did revise it considerably, and mayor and commission, now have it, and it's part of our record. So we need to get you an updated flow chart.
Thanks.
I agree. I mean, a road like Sycamore Road, I'm looking at it at a Google map here. I think that we should be able to find a way to help that type of neighborhood get a sidewalk. It's not like putting a sidewalk inside my neighborhood, which sure, some people would love a sidewalk, but there's no point because there's very little traffic that goes through there. Or some of the other, subdivisions. I mean, this little neighborhood has apartments and a lot of people who go out to Sprout to use transit. They need a safe way to get from A to B. So, I would love to look into that project.
So as far as wording for putting that in our plan, Stephen, would that say, would that be like a policy or a suggestion, like a budget proposal? What is it we're really working on?
I think it would be a budget proposal or, funding request for small local sidewalk connections. And I'll point out one more thing. There is an existing policy for it's a program called the Voluntary Sidewalk Program. It's never been used, but it's similar to the Neighborhood Traffic Management Program that's out there, where small neighborhoods who want to help fund a project can actually set up a special tax allocation district in their neighborhood to pay for sidewalk construction. I would say like Sycamore is a good example of one that wouldn't work for that, right? Because it's a lot of renters in an area that doesn't have a lot of single family home residential. So they still need a funding source. But for neighborhoods that are saying, look, why, we'd love to push for kind of a grassroots sidewalk in our neighborhood, and they can get support, just like Neighborhood Traffic Management Program. They help pay for those things and put it through. We don't push this. It's not, a lot, because as far as equity goes, it's going to be the more affluent neighborhoods that go for this. So it's an option, but I think that I'd feel even greater about that program if we also had a fund for people who aren't able to do that kind of voluntary sidewalk program.
I wanted to make sure that I typed all that and got what you were saying, Stephen. Cool. Thanks for telling us about the voluntary sidewalk program, and I see what you mean, how it's mainly going to be something that affluent neighborhoods can use. But yeah, maybe we can get a budget line item for sidewalks if we pitch it as for smaller programs and helping folks who set up something like this, something like the voluntary sidewalk program.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. Cool. All right, we have 20 more minutes, so I think I'll turn it over to our committees to do our check-ins, grants and data.
Yeah, we had a small meeting yesterday, and we've been corresponding, and we basically have, at this point, kind of exhausted our list of possible funding opportunities. We have looked into a number of different grants, mostly statewide. We're on mailing lists to be notified when there are new calls. But basically, as I said earlier, with the Governor's Office of Highway Safety, we don't have a good opportunity right now to apply for. If anyone does come across anything, hears about anything, sees a call, please get in touch. Let us know. We remain interested in doing this, but it's got to be the right call at the right time, kind of thing.
Great. Yeah, well, maybe some money will filter down from our new administration. Next.
That is actually not at all. The new Secretary of Transportation was a champion for a complete streets policy in his South Bend. So that's actually pretty exciting possibilities. That's years off, but that's still, could be important.
Yeah. Policy committee, as y'all know, Aaron drafted our letter for the Firefly alternates. And so we put the last bit of our work on the complete streets policy on hold, but we will be picking that up again with our next meeting, which I think I need to get on the calendar. So I should probably put a note to do that. Schedule next meeting. And Stephen, I'll get with you about that. Ooh, maybe will our new bike ped coordinator be able to attend? Maybe. Ooh. Hopefully. So that's policy. That's what we got. Education and communications.
Real quick. So Melanie McElroy, I believe her last name is pronounced, from Leisure Services has scheduled our next Open Streets meeting, which will be February 3rd at 1 p.m. And I think that there will be some community representation in there. It's for the most part, it's been staff, and then Bike Athens and Carol and me and a couple other folks. So we really need to get somebody from the community involved, and I think that's what we're going to get. Keeping fingers crossed. And yeah, so it's a go so far, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to get a press release or something once we have a better idea of what our little program's going to look like.
Yes, and that is in April. Is it the 23rd? I have it on. '25th. Yeah, so y'all mark your calendars for April 25th, because I feel like it's going to be all hands on deck. Very exciting. Okay, that was our committee updates. Other reminders or announcements. I just wanted to mention the Firefly Race Series. You know that Firefly is, there's a user group, but there's also the nonprofit that does the fundraising, and they've been active for a long time. A series of races every year. And so you get to check out each of the towns along the route: Winterville, Maxey's, Union Point. What am I missing? Yeah. The races have a virtual component this year, and the Winterville one in particular is just going to be virtual, but the other ones might be in person. So a runner, or if you have a New Year's resolution to run, you can sign up to participate in those, and at least $70 gets you in all 4 races. So it's a great way another way to support this. And they're great because obviously the Firefly Trail is kind of a big deal. And it's been really significant for our group because of the promise of connectivity that it holds for our community. So just wanted to mention that. And I have the list of some upcoming mayor and commission meetings. But before I get to that, is there anything else anyone wants to bring up or call attention to? So mayor and commission meetings with related items, as y'all know, February 9th, the work session is when the mayor and commission will talk about the Firefly Trail phase free alternative alignments, right? Your commissioner. And we might want to line up some folks to speak when there's the official public meeting on that. And I noticed there's a second work session planned for February, and they'll talk about the Greenway Network plans. So that may be, that should be to us as commissioners. And then y'all heard Ronnie mention the Barber Street bike and pedestrian improvements. The work session for that is currently March 9th, and unless things get pushed back, but Ronnie will bring forth some stuff for us to look at before then. I just wanted to mention those.
Lauren, I think there's the public input is going to be reinstalled starting in February.
The public input
on agenda items.
Okay.
In the February meeting. I'm not sure how that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what we were told. Because up until now, you couldn't, there was no public input on anything but zoning issues and planning things.
Thanks for that. That's all I have. Our next meeting is February 23rd at 4 p.m. Yeah. Oh, there was one thing. Who all is interested in a bike ride that would be a facilities visit? So we wouldn't have to involve staff. Anyone interested in doing a bike ride? It's also, I don't know, if you're not interested because you're worried about the pandemic, I understand.
What would this entail? Sorry, I don't, what would we be seeing?
A group ride. I was thinking that we could, very similar to the ride that Carol took, or the ride that I imagine Carol took the mayor and commission on when she Athens, that kind of deal. So if it's a facilities tour, then that means we don't have to have an agenda, or we don't have to have Stephen along unless you want to come, Stephen. You're welcome to. So just trying to gauge interest on that.
Yeah, I'd be up for that.
Okay.
What facilities would you be referring to?
So by facilities, I mean our Greenway, Firefly Trail, sidewalks, roads, all the things that we love to talk about but never have enough time.
And I think it'd be a good chance to talk about some, areas where there's going to be options in the future, like along MLK, for example, and areas where there are problems identified, like near the racetrack. A chance for us to actually get on the ground and see it and talk to each other while we're there. I think that might be really helpful.
Okay.
If I can get a bicycle, I might join you.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll find a place to start, and we can start somewhere, and then if folks wanted to join for part of it, we could make that happen too. Stephen, does it sound like I'm being legal, covering our bases?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
All right. Maybe in the next month or so. Okay. I'll throw out some times and a rain date, and we can go from there.
Good.
Cool.
Thanks. All right.
All right, y'all, that's all I have. Thank you, Stephen, and thanks to Ronnie, who is here, and thank you for our guest, Commissioner Myers, for dropping in and also providing us with some reminders of how we did things a year ago. Y'all stay safe, okay?
Thanks. See ya.
All right. Bye.